All right, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Unscripted Live here on the Elite Sports and Entertainment Network. I'm your host and producer this afternoon, Logan Landers, and joining me to talk about our close to home segment, how our teams have been doing, and doing a NFL Week 10 preview between the Carolina Panthers and the Chicago Bears. As always, Jay McLovin, how you doing this Tuesday afternoon, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Like I said, I was telling you in pre-show, I am resurrecting my fantasy football team, and we are now 3-6. And I didn't think I was going to get this far, but yeah, we're doing well, Logan.
Comeback season, my friend. And our resident stat guy, Dustin Reese, above me here. What's going on, Dustin? How was your weekend?
Oh, this has been the best weekend that I've had since 2016.
Oh wow. What happened this weekend, my friend?
We'll get there and close to home.
See, and that's why we have Dustin on, Jay. He's good. Jesus is in there, not bearing the lead. Well, guys, if you enjoyed the episode here today, give us a like, a follow, a share, subscribe on all of our social media platforms. Once again, you can just look up the Elite Sports and Entertainment Network on Facebook, on X, also on YouTube as well, and on Twitch. Like I said, we go live there each and every single week. Best way to find all of those channels, though, is in our link tree, which is in the description of all of our episodes. Like I said, it's a one-stop shop. You click on it, and you can go to any of our social platforms and see the latest, greatest video that we have put up. Also, some more business to attend to before we get the show started. This upcoming Thursday, we have a few announcements that we will be getting out there. First one is going to be the new intro for our show. That'll be taking place on Thursday, a debut for that. And also, we are working on, of course, if you're in our fantasy football league or if you've been keeping up, we are fighting for something this year. It's not just brand supremacy. It's not just, you can gloat that you're number one. Last year, we gave out a jersey courtesy of, myself, Jay, Frankie, and everyone else at Unscripted at the time. And this year, we're doing a real deal championship belt, not the toy belt you can go get at Target for $25, $30. This is real deal, big money, and we are putting some good work into it. We're going to be putting the finishing touches on that here shortly. And in the very meantime, we'll be giving you a glimpse of what the winner of our Unscripted Fantasy Football League winner will be receiving once the season is all said and done. And we're also not confirmed yet. We're working on getting a pretty good, pretty big interview lined up. Not going to give it away quite yet. Still getting all the details mashed out. But we are hopeful this is going to happen. And it's going to be a fun time here. So stay tuned into the channel so you don't miss any of our updates. Well, guys, you talked about it in the intro a little bit, Dustin. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Let's get to our close to home segment. All right, close to home. We know how it works. 10 minutes on the clock if need be. You get to talk about your teams. You get to get your frustrations out. Or in Dustin's case, enjoy his best weekend in 7-8 years. So, Dustin, with that being said, I'll let you start things off since you are pretty happy about a few things. Go ahead and talk about what your teams have been up to in the past week or two.
Well, to take a page out of my buddy Jay's playbook, what a time to be alive. Let me tell you, what a time to be alive. Who needs to learn a playbook? Does anybody need to learn a playbook in the NFL anymore? Because Josh Dobbs doesn't need to learn a playbook. Josh Dobbs can go to Minnesota for 2 days, not even know the name of more than 3 players on the offense, only know the name of 2 coaches on that team, and literally know 3 plays. And yet he can lead Minnesota to a victory over the Atlanta Falcons and look like a very good quarterback in the process. His 31 points, second most points Minnesota scored all season. And that was with Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson playing. All of a sudden, Minnesota is sitting at 5-4. Oh, well, they're also 4-4 without Justin Jefferson. So maybe they know how to win games without throwing to Justin Jefferson all the time. You bring in Brian Flores. That defense is playing pretty well with Brian Flores right now. Just ask the Atlanta Falcons, who had first and goal on the 1 yard line and had to settle for a field goal in the second quarter, which ultimately was probably the deciding factor in that ball game. Everyone wanted to write the Vikings season off, including me, when they started 0-3 and 1-4. And then obviously when Kirk Cousins went down last weekend, everyone said their season was over at this point and they should just basically start trading pieces away and pack up for the draft. Well, they go and traded for Josh Dobbs, who, yes, he's not a great quarterback, but he's a serviceable backup who's now been in the NFL for 6 years and has spent the time with 6 different franchises. This is also the most talented roster that Josh Dobbs has ever been a part of. And he showed something on Sunday that a lot of people I don't think realize that Josh Dobbs has. He's a smart individual who, despite not knowing the playbook, knew a certain play that was working.
He's a smart individual.
And he went to Kevin O'Connell at halftime and said, this is the play that is working. Let's continue to work off of this play and mix and match other outlets in this play. And that's what they did. They rolled him out to the right. If he saw room to run, he would run for 15, 20 yards. Otherwise, he'd throw a little fade to the corner to his receivers. And now Josh Dobbs has been named the starter for Week 10, for Week 11, for Week 12, and it looks like he's going to be the starter the rest of the way. And if Minnesota can somehow make the playoffs, maybe Dobbs is going to be their quarterback going forward in terms of a backup. Obviously not their franchise quarterback, but at least Minnesota would have a serviceable backup for the long-term run. Now, the most exciting I've been in 7 years came in the baseball world yesterday. You know, the GM meeting started yesterday, and this is kind of when you start to piece together the winter meetings and kind of piece together the whole free agent process and where everything's going to go. And the Chicago Cubs shocked the world yesterday by not only hiring Craig Counsell and stealing him from the Brewers, but they hired Craig Counsell before they fired their former manager, David Ross. Then after they fired David Ross, they made Craig Counsell the highest paid manager in Major League Baseball history with a 5-year, $40 million contract. If you're spending $8 million a year on a manager, you're going to be spending a lot of money in free agency. Because you don't give a manager an $8 million contract if you're not going to spend money. And this is now the second time in the last 10 years that the Cubs have done exactly what they did. If you remember back to 2014, Rick Renteria was the manager for the Cubs for one season, went 71-91 in his one season. What happened the next offseason? The Cubs swooped in, stole Joe Maddon from the Tampa Bay Rays, fired Rick Renteria. 2 years later, they won the World Series. This is exactly the same process. David Ross has been there now for 4 years. He had 2 bad years, 1 division title his first year, and they had a competitive season this past year, but they kind of faded toward the end of the season. They swoop in and steal Craig Counsell, and now it looks like they're gearing up for that 2015 through 17 run that they had under Joe Maddon. The big difference here is I think Craig Counsell is a much better manager than Joe Maddon ever was. I think Craig Counsell is the most underrated manager in Major League Baseball when you look at the success that he had in Milwaukee with the resources that were so limited to what he had in Milwaukee. He's now going to a team that has a lot of resources, a team that can pretty much give Craig Counsell everything that he could want and more. Now I think people are going to start to see how good of a manager Craig Counsell really is.
All right. Well said, Dustin. Well said. And now we're going to kick it over to Jay McLovin so he can give his thoughts on what the Houston teams, Texan teams have been up to in the recent memory. What's up, Jay?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, I didn't have the same success that Dustin had over there with Minnesota, but we did have what I think was at least a competitive game against the Eagles, which have one of the best records in the league right now. We took them down, or we lost 28-23, honestly. But there was more than just that score. Honestly, there were 2 key plays that kept the Cowboys from winning. One was when the 2-point conversion, when Dak Prescott's toe stepped out of bounds as he hit the pylon. That was key number 1, because had he gotten that 2-point conversion, rather than trying to get the touchdown at the end of the game, they could have just got the field goal and went into overtime. That was key 1. Key 2 was when I can never say that guy's name right. I hope I get this name right. Schoonmeyer or Schoonmaker, I think is how you say his last name. When he got the ball at the 1 yard line, He actually went in. They called it. Eventually, they ruled it a touchdown. Obviously, it got taken back because his knee went down. But and if you go back and look at that play, the one thing I hated about this game was Cowboys got called every damn time for pass interference. When's the last time you seen the Eagles get called for pass interference? That dude has Schoonmaker wrapped up before the ball even got there, and that's the reason why Schoonmaker didn't get into the end zone, because the dude was already being tackled before he even got the ball. But yet we don't get the pass interference call. How many times in that Eagles game did you see pass interference by the Eagles, and yet it goes by the wayside? That was my main issue with that damn game. I felt that the officiating was horse crap. I had to say it, clean it up for you, Logan. It's horse crap.
Proud of you, Jay.
And it's ridiculous. But hey, it is what it is. But I was proud of my boys. We went out there, we fought. We got our butts kicked by the 49ers. But when we played them Eagles, man, we played them good. And that was in the heart of Philadelphia. Dak did a good job. He didn't turn over any interceptions. He got you 374, 3 touchdowns. He did take some sacks. Some of it was his fault. Some of it wasn't his fault, but he had 5 sacks. A couple of them were pretty big losses. Of course, you saw that last play at the end when he had all the penalties. They just couldn't get it done. They got all the way down to the 11-yard line. And, of course, they has a few sacks and got him taken back. But I thought the defense did a pretty good job. The defense themselves had 3 sacks. But penalties killed the Cowboys on that last drive. Honestly, it really did. But I'm not mad, man. Like I said, I think Mike McCarthy said we need to learn from these kinds of games. Well, let me tell you something, Mike. I'm tired of learning. The Cowboys got a name PhD in learning. But I ain't going to say it's all Cowboys' fault. It isn't, man. Some of that was officiating, and some of it just was, just unfortunate things, stepping out of bounds. It just is what it is, man. But anyway, I am. We're 5-3, but I do feel some hope in this Cowboys team. I think we're doing okay. And then you look over at the Rockets. We won last night, 122, I think it was, to 99. However, Sacramento, we beat them back-to-back games, but they didn't have Darren Fox. So I'm not going to consider that a complete win because they were kind of shorthanded on Darren Fox not being in there. But the Rockets are doing pretty good, man. We're 3-3 right now. They're shooting the ball at 45% from the field, 36% from the three-point land, 72% from free throw land. I would like to see their free throw percentage get a little bit better than just 72. But I'm going to take it, man. We're 12th in the West right now. This time last year, we were right at the very bottom of the West. Randy Jowers, that distinction now belongs to the Memphis Grizzlies. What a time. What a time to be alive, baby. What a time. Yes. Brooks is actually doing pretty well. He's third on the team in scoring, believe it or not. He had a pretty good game last night. I think he scored over 20 points. So, yeah, man, overall, the Rockets are looking pretty decent. I don't expect high things from them this year. I still think we got a long way to go. But I do think Udoka is going to get this team righted back on where they need to go, and that is my shot.
All right. Well said. For me, I was telling Dustin a little bit pre-show that I'm just glad the Raiders got the win again. They just absolutely kicked the crap out of the New York Giants, who have now lost Daniel Jones for the rest of the season. So first year of that big contract did not live up to any expectations whatsoever. Once again, Raiders had a pretty good day. Aiden O'Connell, not nothing too crazy. He didn't have any touchdowns. Also didn't have any interceptions, but he kept it pretty efficient, 16-25 for 209. And he looked solid. And, in very few plays he's had this year, he looked pretty good. Josh Jacobs actually had a good game, Jay. We've been waiting for it all season. Almost 100 yards on 2 touchdowns. Only a 3.8 average, but it worked, and a win's a win. I said good win overall. They definitely needed that. 8 sacks is insane. So credit to the defense for that. Like I said, Raiders, we're 4-5, so still there, still fighting a little bit, not down in the dumps completely, but it's still a long climb. Later on this week, we do have the MLB awards, and I'm fully expecting Ronald Acuna to take home the MVP. So looking forward to that. I'm saying if and more than likely when that happens, we're going to have a show on it, just talking about all the recaps, who won what awards. So that's going to be a good show coming up in the future. Hawks, they got their 4-game home game win streak snapped last night by the Thunder, 126-117. Shai just scored 30, had a really good game. That's what good players do. Fortunately, couldn't get the win in that one, but hoping to get the win against the Orlando Magic on Thursday. And also Atlanta United. I know we don't talk a whole lot about soccer, but Atlanta United fighting for their lives in the MLS playoffs right now. Game's going to be at 7 o'clock against the Columbus Crew. Columbus got the win last week, so they are leading the best-of-3 series 1-0. So Atlanta United, do or die. Let's see what we can do tonight at home. All right, and with that being said, guys, let's go ahead and switch things over to our Thursday Night Football game preview. The Carolina Panthers taking on the Chicago Bears in a battle for first place of the NFL draft. So, Jay McLovin, who's taking home this one?
Yeah, I hate to say it, but this is like battle of the mediocre 1 versus mediocre 2. You get the Panthers at 1-7 versus the Bears at 2-7. I got to be honest with you. I know Frankie's saying don't throw in the towel on Bryce Young, but I just don't believe in this kid. I don't believe in him at all. I think he was definitely if they had to redraft, he would not be going number 1. I think that would actually be falling down to Stroud. And look, everybody knows how much I hate Ohio State. I really hate all the quarterbacks that come out of Ohio State. But you can't deny what C.J. Stroud is doing over there in Houston. And let's be honest, ain't not a one of us even thought about drafting Tank Dell or Nico Collins or anybody over there because they were a bunch of nobodies, and C.J. Stroud has made them into somebody. Now, the argument was made about Bryce Young. Well, Jay, he doesn't have a whole lot of people over there. Well, last time I thought Adam Thielen is still a pretty damn good wide receiver, and they got Miles Sanders and Hubbard. I mean, they got pretty decent running backs. Come on, they got Mingo over there. They got some people. The problem is they just don't have a damn quarterback. The guy's too small, and I just don't believe in Bryce Young. I don't believe – and I think the numbers speak for themselves. This got like just shy of 1,400 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. 7 interceptions. That's ridiculous. But then you look at Justin Fields, and he's not a whole lot better either. 1,200 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 6 picks. So take your battle of the crap.
Fields isn't playing, and Fields hasn't played for a month.
I'm just trying to tell you, man, take your battle of the crap. Honestly, Hubbard, not a bad guy. Foreman, he's on my fantasy football team, and he just hasn't really produced a whole lot for him. So you're not really looking at too much in the running game for either one of these teams either. Carolina, I think they limit opponents to like 28 points a game. The defense gives up 178, 131 on the rush, giving up 325 total yards a game. The Bears aren't really even that much better on their pass. They give around 256 and 79 on the rush. So they are a little bit better on the rush side of it. I will give them that. But I'm just not sold on either one of these teams. I think that the Bears are going to get this win just because Bryce Young sucks. And, yeah, man, I think the Bears take this win. I think it'll be a close game. I think it'll be a low-scoring game, honestly. So I'm going to go 21-13 favor of the Bears.
All right, Dustin, who do you think is going to take this win on Thursday night?
I mean, for the Bears' sake, they better hope they win this game because this is like they own Carolina's first-round pick. So if the draft were to start today, Carolina either picks number 1 or 2. I don't know where the tiebreaker is with Arizona because Arizona also has 1 win. But if the Bears win this game, they can pretty much guarantee themselves a top 3 pick. If the Bears lose this game and Carolina wins, now you have Carolina with 2 wins. Now you have the Bears with 2 wins. You also have the Giants with 2 wins, the Patriots with 2 wins. You have the Bears falling out of the top 5 with their own pick. But because Carolina would have beaten the Bears, they would have the tiebreaker over Chicago. So then Carolina moves behind Chicago in the draft. So now instead of picking potentially 1-3, 1-4, you're picking 5-6, 5-7. And the difference between that number 7 player and the number 1 player, people may not think is a big difference. But when you're a team that has so many holes and you have so many specific positions you need to fill, that could be such a big difference if you lose that much ground in the first round. So for the Bears, they need to win this game. For Matt Eberflus, he needs to win this game. Otherwise, with the mini bye week this week, I'm not going to be surprised if Matt Eberflus is not brought back before the next game if they lose this game. The guy's got 5 wins as a head coach in 2 seasons. He's 5-22 as a head coach. I mean, granted, this is his first go around as a head coach, and you tend to struggle. But 5-22 is just unacceptable, especially when you look at the amount of money the Bears invested in this roster this offseason. The amount of money they put in on the defense. They made that trade for DJ Moore to help Justin Fields out. They added more running backs to help Justin Fields out. Justin Fields is hurt, which I understand. But the defense has looked even worse this year than what they did last year, and they were an NFL worst last year, and that's where they spent most of their money on this season was on the defense. Eberflus was supposed to be a defensive-minded head coach. Doesn't look like it. You lost not only your defensive coordinator in week 3, but now you lost your running back coach in week 8 because both of them had inappropriate activity at the workplace. So obviously something is not working right now in Chicago, and the head coach that you currently have clearly has no control over anything in that locker room right now, and that's not a good look for the Bears. I'm not quite on the same level Jay is when it comes to Bryce Young. Bryce Young does not look good, no, but he really does not have much to work with. And Adam Thielen, yes, Adam Thielen is a decent receiver, but he's nowhere near what he was in Minnesota at this point, which is why Minnesota got rid of him. If he was anywhere close to what he did in Minnesota, Minnesota would have kept him. But now he goes to Carolina, and he's a 33-year-old who's Carolina's number one option, and he's not really a number one option at this point. Miles Sanders isn't even starting anymore. Chuba Hubbard is starting right now, and Miles Sanders was their big offseason acquisition in the running back. If Miles Sanders was a guy that you spent $48 million on for 5 years and now he's not even starting, that shows you that he's not very good, and he was only good in Philadelphia because he was a system running back that was good inside that system. Bryce Young needs a lot more help. That's why having the first-round pick for Carolina would have been crucial to Bryce Young. But now that they don't have their first-round pick, Bryce Young is going to look like a bust, I think, the first couple of years because he's not going to have any help to help him. And this is one of those games where you're going to go up against DJ Moore, who Bryce Young would have been throwing to this year had they not traded him to Chicago. Chicago Bears also have Dante Foreman. Dante Foreman was Carolina's leading rusher a year ago who signed a free agent deal with the Bears this year. So 2 of Carolina's best offensive weapons from a season ago are now in Chicago. And Bryce Young could have had an opportunity to work with both of them had the Panthers kept them around, but they chose not to. Tyson Bagent is starting for Chicago again, and Justin Fields is day-to-day, but I don't know how much longer he's going to be out. Bagent's looked okay, but he hasn't played great. I think the Bears win, but I think it's going to be a wonderful 14-13 type game. It's just going to be just crappy, ugly, terrible.
He said, don't show up. Said, just watch it from home. Don't waste the money. Oh, yeah, for me, look, I ain't looking forward to this one. This is the epitome of what people have been saying for years for Thursday night games, and how they're, for the most part, forgettable or not a whole lot goes on. But Dustin, you brought up a good point. This has draft pick implications. So if you're into that, definitely you're going to be wanting to check this out. You mentioned both teams, with the Bears being probably, the biggest disappointment coming from the offseason, where you mentioned they spent all of that money to just kind of throw at some guys, but it has not panned out. The Justin Fields injury obviously isn't helping their cause either, nor is it helping his because, it's hard to improve when you're not on the field. As for Carolina, for me, I thought Carolina would be a little bit better. I'm not saying they would be great, but I thought they would be maybe, 2 or 3 wins into this season and not, just the one. So it's rough. It's rough. Bryce Young, I usually wait about a year to judge guys and if I think they're going to be good or not. So I'm not having a jury out there yet. He has not looked strong. He has not looked great, at least in the first half of the season. We'll see if he does maybe get it tightened up a little bit here in the second half once he gets just more reps and more games under his belt. And you mentioned Miles Sanders, who was the big acquisition this offseason for Carolina, Dustin. I have him on my fantasy roster. I am not planning on having him for much longer because, as you mentioned, Chuba Hubbard is the man in charge there. But for me, coming into this game, I'll go a low-scoring affair. I'll go Carolina Panthers getting a close win, 17-14. That's how I see it playing out on Thursday night. But
Interesting.
we want to hear, though, what you have to say. Our fans, of course, check us out on all our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, all at the Elite Sports Entertainment Network. Best way to find that, though, is our link tree, which is in the bio for all of our episodes. Jay McLovin, Dustin, Reese, our stat guy. Appreciate you coming on, my friends. I've been your host, producer, Logan.